I think it's great. So both Perrin, Kerns, and Hub Art Collective have called MOsley WOtta a creative savant, and I would agree. He was nominated for the position of Oregon Poet Laureate in 2018. He was not accepted. He was a top-tier finalist nominated for the 2019 Felids Fellowship. He botched the interview and was subsequently rejected. You know what I love about that? Talk about risk and failure. It's great. He's the creative laureate of Bend, Oregon. His group show multimedia art installation at the High Desert Museum was awarded the Charles Redd Western Center for Exhibition Excellence. MOsley WOtta, also known as MOWO, is a national TEDx performer, speaker, writer, painter, and recording artist based in Central Oregon. He's our friend. He is super happy to have him back, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Again, just before I leave it, for folks, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. At the end, we will have some time for a Q&A. And now I'm going to mute my box and let MOsley take it from here.
Thank you, thank you. I love the folks at Fishtap when you are around people where you're like, this is my squad of geeks. Like where were you my entire public school experience so that we could be eccentric together. Like, I love you all so much, and thanks for fighting for it this year. Really appreciate it. This thing that we're gonna do right now is play a video, and this video has like you're gonna feel however you're gonna feel about it, but it definitely has sort of a somber tilt to it, and then we'll jump into some Q&A, and if there's time, maybe one more like brief little reading or something afterwards. But we're gonna see if this video can work and think about if it works for you. Up when the land's still cold, over fields been tilled, full of dirt and bones, and the bone white moon seems to crawl along close, make the fearful shrink, make the shadows grow. Land of the free, on the back of the slave, don't look back, new roads to pave, just punch your card. Been a hard, long day. Was it all worthwhile? Well, who's to say? Early to rise, like in days of old. After long-won fights, on the land we stole. Another man down, turned the hot blood cold. Was it all worthwhile? I do not know. Was it all worthwhile? I do not know. These unmarked graves and new signposts were running wild. out in the cold. We can't stop here. We're far too close. You got neon signs on the old wood frames in a tourist town with a made-up name, grease on their hands, holding handheld games. And the old folks say that this whole world's changed. Rednecks, white checks, blue-collar wage, black folks, thin line, same old saying, fighting time is the time we waste. And the old folks say, ain't a damn thing changed. Was it all worthwhile? I do not know. These unmarked graves and new signposts, we're running wild, out in the cold. We can't stop here. We're far too close. Was it all worthwhile? For a champagne toast, you're the big man now. Everybody knows. Get yours, keep yours. Don't you share. Full house of cards always beats two pair. Yellowstone in the face of gold. No one calls your bluff. Hear the snake eyes roll. Win some, lose, bet big or fold. Suicide kings, done lost control. We make big deals on a firm land shape, on a dotted line, on a dinner plate. Push folks aside, standing in your way. If they stand too long, put them in their graves. Was it all worthwhile? I do not know. These unmarked graves, new signposts, we're running wild, out in the cold, on countless graves, nameless tombstones. Was it all worthwhile? I do not know. These unmarked graves and new signposts, we're running wild, out in the cold. We can't stop here. We're far too close. We're running wild, out in the cold. We can't stop here. We're far too close. We can't stop here. We're far too close. We can't stop here. We're far too close. On this lonely, lonely, lonely road. You gotta hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold. On this lonely, lonely, lonely road. You gotta hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold. On this lonely, lonely, lonely road. You gotta hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold. Was it all worthwhile? I do not know. These unmarked graves and new signposts were running wild, out in the cold. We can't stop here. We're far too close. Lonely, lonely, lonely road. Gotta hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold. On this lonely, lonely, lonely road. Gotta hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold. To completely take the emotion a different direction. I was laughing about, which is always the inevitable upshot of feeling some kind of way, sad, something. But anyway, I sent this to Mike on like a Monday morning, and he hit me back. Like, this is how he started his whole day at the office, I guess, by watching this video. And that's like a mean joke to do that. I feel like I'm gonna put a link to the video. If that is that okay that I put a link to the video in here? Okay, great. Great. Cool.
Yeah, we had talked about having MOsley do our opening night, and they were like, MOsley's always so positive. He's got such an amazing message. It'd be a great way to start off the week. And he sends us this video, and we're like, well. Oh, artists will be artists.
Yeah. Well, and it's also good too, because you should be suspicious of somebody who's always upbeat, happy, what have you. And I definitely have a lot of that, because there's just so much, and you feel that when you come to Fishtap, there's so much energy that is leaning towards something that we call positive. And that's coursing through all the time. And there was this piece and this opportunity to showcase some writing in a different way, and then also to showcase some of these other artists. So that was my friend Jesse Lockett on Lock Films, and my homie Colton Tyler Williams, and then this great artist Billy Mickelson, who goes by Third Seven, to do this multimedia piece. And I like the multimedia thing. So there are. Oh, do I need to pause or for questions or anything like this? I'm gonna take this at a different pace than the craft talk. So.
You're good. Go do what you need to do. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So with that in mind, I go by MOsley WOtta because there's this idea that we're all made up of the same stuff, and that is a big part of where that name comes from. And then there's also the reality that I created this name as a way to make safe what I thought other people would feel was dangerous, right? So let me give you a safe name so that you can enter something like rap without recoil. And that is a survivalist tactic. And with this name comes a variety of other names. Killy Holiday, Jigaboo Radley, Amalgam X. I have Uncle Tom's Cabin Fever, all these ways to play on the words. And they're they have, in a beginning way, they have some sort of relation towards race and prejudice and our interaction. But these are all just ways in to talk about how we're going to take personal ownership and ways that we can contribute to what seems to be like this acknowledgement culture. And this piece that I just did had a lot to do with the uncertainty that comes with looking at what we have done. And when we are what we're really saying when we're acknowledging the land that we're on, and what it really means to take responsibility, and also dance that fine line between taking responsibility and delving into some sort of self-loathing or self-hatred, which I can tell you a lot of us know from personal experience is not the way to go. So I think also too, now is a really good time to be questioning very deeply our ideologies. And so a lot of what I have to share in the time that remains, and probably the response to a lot of the questions that, any questions that get asked, are going to come from this place of a deep sort of questioning. And certainly talking about things that we're kind of not supposed to talk about. So let me find this piece real quick. One of the things that I've had to confront for a long time is the identities that have been given to me. And I think we're at a time right now where a lot of people are questioning who they are beyond the ideas that were given to them. So here's something that I would like to bring up. Okay, so this doesn't seem much like a joke, but there is something of a joke. And I think I danced around it. Maybe I touched on it yesterday with the craft talk.
But one thing that happened after we all felt our mortality and our fragility shaken so thoroughly by this coronavirus, we had this deep sense of connection with each other. And I think this is something that we are not going to be able to unshake. We felt on a deep level our responsibility to each other, our connection to each other, something like oneness in a way that we hadn't experienced before. And I believe that's because human beings need sometimes those extremely fragile and tender moments to recognize what's really going on. And we experience this when we fall in love. We experience this when we were born. I believe we experience this when we die. But there was something that happened that I thought was absolutely remarkable while we were watching George Floyd being murdered. And one of the remarkable things that happened as we mustered up the courage, for those of us who have seen the video, mustered up the courage to watch it, what we saw was a very clear focal point, which was this devastating reality that human beings were, I was going to say human beings were just, that I don't believe in evil, but I believe in people. Human beings were just interacting in a way that we have done for far too long. And we were standing by and witnessing in a way that we've done for far too long. But while we were so hyper-focused on this one spot, there was something that felt miraculous that happened behind George Floyd. And David Chauvin or Chauvin, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but either way, it sounds like chauvinist or pushing and shoving. Behind was a bus, a public transit bus, which has taken, of course, freedom riders and the like. Public transit is a big part of civil rights movements and these kind of things. Behind George Floyd was a bus, and on that bus it read, "Open Your Eyes," which was part of a credit union campaign. So while we're hyper-focused on this one spot, there was a sign that literally passed behind all of that was reading, "Open Your Eyes." This is too much for me anymore to say that these kind of things are coincidence. There's something I've had a long time growing inclination that there's some kind of symphony. This is something like a script, a play, a choreography, a dance. But it forces me to question so deeply, then why, right? Why would this happen? What did we need to see? What sacrifices are coming from this person who has become a catalyst? And there's a deeper thing here. There's no coincidence, there's a reckoning. There's a deeper thing here when we question something that we have so casually assumed. For instance, white. So I've grown up with, a white mom and a black dad, and these terms never quite fit. And a lot of my work has been using that as a catalyst towards a deeper questioning. So you are not white. My friend suggested I pose this as a question, but so let's assume this is not a complete final draft here. You are not white. White people do not exist. I honestly don't know who you've been talking to. That's supposed to be something like a joke. And then here's the prescriptive part. Think back to the first time you considered yourself white. How old were you when you first identified as white? With this understanding that this is a limiting idea. Subtract the number that you were then from the age you are now. So think back to the first time you really identified, oh, I am white, and subtract that number from the age you are now. This is the number of years you have believed an idea that is not yours, one that does not speak to the full spectrum of your being. Do this while brushing your teeth. When you are done brushing your teeth, look at your teeth. Ask yourself if they are white. If you pass the torch long enough, you'll burn the children's hands. We're at a time where we are figuring out very carefully how to take full responsibility personally for what is happening in the world. One way I think we can do this best is to not ask if we have been contributing to systems of oppression, but know that we have been contributing to systems of oppression, and that this isn't unique to one person. This is a weight that we can bear only perhaps as a full community, right? So the question is not, am I racist? Am I prejudiced? Do I work within an oppressive system? The answer to this is already yes. The deeper question is, what are you willing to do to change the trajectory, having now acknowledged that you are contributing to these things? And the question of, if this new trajectory is freedom, and if it's uncomfortable, and if it is alienating, do you still want freedom if it is a painful thing? Okay, some things that are supposed to be like jokes here. A good politician is like a healthy intestine. They keep shit moving. A bad politician will let the whole system go septic just so they can keep some extra shit for themselves. Your own 2 feet notwithstanding, support is my favorite full contact sport. Do not give up, these are little snippets here. Do not give up your excellence. It may be the only thing of yours we have left to love without question. Faith, I do not believe. You are insignificant, not when I have seen the size of a seed. Only when we admit how intrinsically dependent we are on each other, only when we act from this play of dependence, that's the joke there, will we know the superiority we feign in the midst of the illusion of our inclusivity. And then this is dependent on you seeing the punctuation, but it's you and I, work, you and I work. That we can only really be as superior or as supreme as we like to pretend we are in exclusive groups when we are radically inclusive with each other. Okay. Every foe in every war dies of friendly fire. Both love and war are disruptive, but love is much harder than war. In war, you can kill people. Here are some things that are just for writers to mull over. The first one is, this has nothing to do with what I was just talking about. The first one here is toddler wobbler. I thought you might enjoy saying that out loud to yourself. There's a guy who wrote the book Sapient, which was very popular. And in a conversation, somebody said, you know what my gripe with Harari is, the guy who wrote the book. So Harari gripe, I don't know if you've ever heard that sentence before. Cancer is also known as death by immortality. That was one of those ones I feel like sometimes only maybe writers could truly appreciate, or philosophers truly appreciate, the idea of death by immortality. And the other one that's just fun to say, in fact, maybe if you want to put yourself on mute and just say it out loud right now, I'll say it slowly, and then you can, it's better if you say it faster, is kumquat, squat, squad. Kumquat, squat, squad. If you're feeling depressed, this is a sentence that will save you from suicide. I'm pretty sure. Okay. I have a couple more here, and then actually I just want to do this. Do I have time for a little bit of a longer piece? Are we okay on time? Okay. Let's see here. I'll find it. Now that it would be nice if it was just immediately queued up. Oh, I think this is also something else that speaks to some of where we have been. It is, I heard this great, there's the story of Sisyphus, who's condemned to push this boulder up this mountain, and then all day, and then at the end of the day, the boulder rolls back down, and then he has to go back and push it up again. But Sisyphus is smiling. So why? Is an excellent question to ask yourself. This is a short little thing here. In our catalogs, we canonize the saints of own your bullshit, who make practice of a lifetime searching mirrors for the culprit. Bit off more than you can chew, best to swallow your pride. To every saint who fills the windowsill with rounds of crow pie, I put the gun inside my mouth, but didn't like the taste of it. I put the ballot in the box, but didn't get my candidate. Was gonna shoulder shrug the boulder like who fucking gives a shit. inclined to give up on the climb, then saw the smile on Sisyphus. Okay, let me see if I can find this last piece. Okay, I found it, but I'll pause for a second here. Is there anybody who needs to ask anything or say anything? I'm tempering myself. I think we can all agree. This is restraint for me. Okay. So, you know, I like putting things to music, and then I also like to see how they hold up when they're not put to song. Pretty sure we all have slight leaks. Pretty sure we all have stories to put slight leaks in this hardship. Well, cry me a river, they set fire to your darkness. I think the light in my attic may be an act born of arson. Gave the phoenix a piece of my mind and the keys to my apartment. Rise from the ashes, then make the bed. New day to get your ass kicked and regret what you've said. Brush the filth from my mouth, fall down and eat shit. This is the story of Lafcadio and the Year of the Pig. Lafcadio is a great Shel Silverstein book, which you should check out, especially if you don't quite feel like you fit. Is this a career in the arts or a fear of obscurity? They say love is unsafe. What's that say about security? Is this fear of the dark why we go towards the light? All I know is that I don't, plus my will and this mic. If survival is a bitch, then what's that make us? Mama didn't raise a bitch. When the going gets tough, got a soft spot for knuckleheads who don't give up. Underdogs to Undertaker, little water, lot of dust. Done a lot of shit, don't always like who I am. Stop saying it's a gift because it sounds like a scam. And it still trips me up that we can see in this dark. Just let ourselves adjust. And something about trust. I don't feel any safer when I hear my dogs barking. Not when I've seen teeth rip bark from the skin of a carcass. Not when the knives in my kitchen have their own aisle and department. I'm looking around this bloodbath like, so this is the open market. I don't feel any safer when I hear my troops marching. Just the soundtrack to a throwback willing to die for my offspring. When did blindness juke kindness and employ the paranoia? Eyeballing all my neighbors like, well, I have to destroy you. Terrified. This pair of eyes seen solutions and done nothing. Well aligned with making jokes I've conflated with confronting. Suicide's a snooze button. So what's the point in jumping if not to fly? Misunderstood when I said I believe in nothing. Sidebar, whatever. The idea that nothing is a proper noun, different from lowercase n. First I was afraid, I was petrified. Staying in one place, I was petrified. Frozen fear upon my face, I was petrified. What is it that I'm asking, outlasting this casting? Survival is a bitch, so what's that make us? Mama didn't raise a bitch. When the going gets tough, got a soft spot for knuckleheads who don't give up, who give up the ghost, but never gave up. Yeah, we done a lot of shit, don't always like who I am. Stop saying it's a gift because it sounds like a scam, and it still trips me up because we can see in this dark. Just let ourselves adjust, and something about trust, and it still trips me up that we can see in this dark. You can start a whole fire telling secrets to a spark, and it still chokes me up to hear you sing lullabies. I get that lump in my throat and my eyes start to leak because I know someday, though I don't know why, that you'll only see the sun once you cry yourself to sleep. Cool. I can just kind of leave it there for a second and then we can be on the safe side of the clock and
yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. I always need a second to let.
Yeah, so blah, 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 yeah, so much.
Yeah,
yeah,
no, yeah. It's an emotional reaction. It's a good thing. I'm gonna give people a second if you have questions or you want to type them in, or if you have, I guess MOsley, since this is who you are, if somebody has a comment.
Oh yeah, you can. Like what
yeah,
it'd be so great if in the sort of inherent polite and considerate nature that comes with Fishtap, if somebody was just like bullshit and just like, you know, to challenge the whole thing would actually also be really good. So there's room for you if you want to Grinch out and critique.
Well, here's some that are coming in. So Mal wants to know, Mal, you're asking the best questions. Can I just say, can you talk more about acknowledgement culture?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a term that I've heard or just one that I'm saying, but it should be a term, yeah. But this is a prescriptive step. There's this guy that I like whose mannerisms I mimic oftentimes when I'm talking to people. His name's Slavoj Žižek, and he has written too many books and blah, blah, blah. But what he says very crassly in this one interview is that he would have, and again, this is supposed to be intentionally vulgar, he would have sold his mother into slavery to find out what happens day 2 at the end of movie for V for Vendetta. After the revolution, what do we actually do? So I think that acknowledgement is a prescriptive step at a time where we're experiencing a revolution and we don't simply want to just go around in the circle, that we really want to move forward, and we don't know how to do that because we're looking for an enemy and also finding that enemy is ourself. So, you know, because on some level, just a superficial level, to say something like I'm anti-racist when you acknowledge your own racism is a suicidal remark, even just grammatically or whatever. So what we need to do is, again, we need to figure out a way to take personal ownership, but walk that fine line where we don't trip off into trying to use our guilt and shame and blame as currency to be exchanged for tomorrow. So acknowledging what is going on, that I want the best for the next generation, and I have a Costco card and their packaging is pretty awful, that I'm going out and protesting in the streets and I'm wearing my mask, and also I'm drinking single serve bottled water that is wrapped in plastic that is going to go into the oceans. I have to acknowledge my own hypocrisy, not to condemn myself for it, because if I'm condemned, I won't be able to fully, that condemnation is a kind of chrysalis or cocoon, and you can liquefy and sort of melt it. But once you open up and you experience this full fragility of being totally open, you really can go somewhere. And that's what we're trying to do, because we are letting go of white and black. We are letting go of what it means to be a man and be a woman and still find something like identity and place, so we don't get totally lost in ambiguity. And this is why the writers at Fishtap and all over the world are so essential here, is because we're giving voice to that uniqueness. And it's your uniqueness may inspire somebody else's, but they can't take it on for themselves. That's why we need your voices this way. So we can acknowledge all the things. You know, you should or shouldn't have a lawn based on where you live. You should or shouldn't be drinking orange juice, which we talked about last year, based on where you live, right? If you're eating fruits out of season, you're probably part of the problem, right? Like, so how are we really going to deeply acknowledge these things? And then you get to choose how much you can actually take. This isn't about saving yourself by burdening, or saving the world by burdening yourself with all the calamity. You get to fill your plate with just enough. I ran into this guy and he had this great line. He said, I think enough of us are just enough educated. Like, we are just at this great tipping point right now. Yeah.
Okay. I'll save those. Kristen wanted to know if you could talk about your encounters with young people and their response to, I'm guessing, to your work.
I think, fortunately, most of the time, if a kiddo is mature enough to have thought about some of these things on their own, then they're already, like, usually pretty far ahead. The tricky bit with youth is not giving them the full brunt of this, like, oh, it's the youth that are going to save us. If the youth don't know how the elder walks with the cane, then their legs are not going to work. They are absolutely connected to and dependent on those who have come before them and who are existing with them to sort of reap, if you will, the wisdom of those past experiences. And it's their job to figure out what the new problems are. But the biggest concern right now that I see with the youth is not their inability to understand these things at the bit rate that they happen, but is the perils of things like ageism, and also the perils of things like trend. Like, let's not trend these calamities. We need to work these things. The elder's body will start to slow down, or as they say, you know, the wise woman holds her blood. We start to slowly incorporate ourselves with this planet that moves both so much faster than we can imagine and at this like mountain growing pace to inform these youth who are built for the sprint. We need to help inform them of this marathon. So it's not that intellectually the kids don't get it. They just have to figure out their pacing. And then also they need the emotional support when they're taking on such big stuff. This is huge. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Kyle, that's a good question. You know, is it even possible to break out of the hypocrisy you just described? I think you started talking about that a little bit, that you take on what you can.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I don't think that's
between shame and guilt. I just heard this the other day, that shame is I am bad, and guilt is I did a bad thing, you know. And how do you, you know, instead of taking on that whole world of, you know, I'm a terrible person because I buy orange juice, and you know,
right.
you know, instead of going back saying, well, maybe I shouldn't have bought the orange juice, let's make a different choice next time, you know. And
Yeah.
that seems like it's manageable there, but how are you, you know, navigating this kind of shame culture that we live in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the goal is to get out of the hypocrisy. I really do think that the goal is like new problems, and also too, if you're going to get the orange juice or the glass of wine, or you know, have gluten or whatever, to deeply enjoy it. Like to really deeply enjoy it, not just doing it because that's what the group is doing. So now apply this to something as uncomfortable away from orange juice, but we can link orange juice back to some sort of, you know, colonialism, blah, blah, blah. Consider a lynching this way. If only the people who really enjoyed a lynching were at one, there would be a very small population, rather than the folks who are just caught up in the fanfare of something exciting and something to do or whatever. So this is really, so again, I think that to hone in on what your hypocrisies are, what you're actually willing to confront, deal with, and evolve from, will just give birth to other things that are contradictory. You know, I mean, we're probably looking at slowly becoming or quickly becoming cyborgs. Our phones are going to probably be inside of us and all these things. At some point, perhaps our biological system will no longer require resource, like I need to eat something, I need to excrete something. What our problems will be then are going to be very different, and we'll have to confront a different set of hypocrisies at that point. But I don't think escaping this so that we can be some pure entity is really the goal. If that is the goal, maybe then it's already guaranteed, because we're going to die. Maybe this is the one time that we really get to like have a great equalizing break, because I think we are born from love, and I believe love is a very disruptive force. And so we're constantly, as this loving creature, love is all there is or whatever, we're constantly engaged with this kind of hypocrisy. Yeah, all of us.
Yeah. Alex wanted to know who you musically draw your influence from. He said he's hearing a mixture of Jurassic 5, Fairside, and
oh yeah.
And also Mike put a link in there about where you can find your writing. If you Mike put a link up to MOsley's website. So yeah, what about your musical influence? It sounds like, I'm guessing, well, I know it's eclectic, so
yeah. I think, I mean, there's like an ilk here, Jurassic 5, Farside, Dig World Planets. That is definitely an era, and one that I don't probably know as well as my hair would let you think that I do, whatever. Like I love those guys, I love those groups, and a lady in Diggable Planets. But I am thoroughly inundated also with other artists that I'm paying attention now to for reasons around like production value, for example. Not that Jurassic 5, for example, is amazing production value. But there's an artist, for example, Woodkid, who came out with a song, Pale Yellow, and has these, this is an artist who's done some amazing multimedia things. There's a great video, Run Boy Run, which has been out for a long time now. But this is somebody who has taken a sort of a cinematic approach to making music. And there's kind of an endless supply of returning to, and this is a kind of hypocrisy here as a generalization, returning to Black women in music who somehow were still able to get some sort of recording and career off the ground when sort of everything potentially is slipping underneath them, to listen to their music as always visionary. So to listen to Billie Holiday as always visionary, to listen to Nina Simone as always visionary, that whatever they're saying, just by default, let's say, you know, just to be sort of ignorant, you could find fault in what I'm saying, that all their work is visionary, that you can't go wrong by listening to any Black woman's music. And then, of course, we all know we're all just various forms of Black da-da-da. So now we're listening to any woman's music at a fundamentally deep level, knowing that the entire music industry's anatomy was not designed for a woman to succeed, and yet there she is. And I just found this out recently in medical, in medical practices, our books or whatever, they have not been anatomically accurate, not because they depicted a man incorrectly, but because they've been using the man's anatomy to diagnose women. And we still have been, and like, this is new that we're only now starting to. So we have to look at folks who have been able to survive and exist despite the exceptions as people to, even if we don't like the music, especially as people to drive that visionary nature in ourselves. And that's really incredible. So those are some examples. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I think that's going to wrap us up for it. There, I just stumbled and ran out of words. I'm still processing.
Can I hold up 4 books?
Please do. Yes, please.
All right, here's one.
William Stafford on Peace and War. Yes. Everyone has 2 losers. Yes.
Here's this guy in Portland who's so self-deprecating, he'll probably tell you he didn't write the book, even though he helped to edit it, whatever. This is Adam Davis. This is Taking Action. This is a good prescriptive book for conversations. If you go to Oregon Humanities and make some noise, they'll give you one for free, I'm quite sure. Go in and start.
Yeah, is the executive director at Oregon Humanities and is a good friend of Fishtap and is a wonderful guy. So totally appreciate that.
There's this, yeah, Jesse. This is a great one to say, oh, in what ways was Africa participating in a transatlantic slave trade? Again, in what ways have we always been participating in the things that haven't been working for us? She wrote this at like 27, like so obnoxiously gifted, right? You know, like, yeah.
Writing that one down, yes.
Yeah, and great name, yeah, Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse.
And then this is like a classic. Sorry, I mostly have guy authors here, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. This is a relatively thin, short book. They have an audio version. But for those of us who have the ideas and have a hard time getting it through.
Mike wanted to know if you'd wrap up with a poem.
Oh, sure. How about a little bit of a rap? I like to push rap in because so often it gets disregarded as any kind of real form of poetry. Okay, so I think I've done this before. From the Oregon organics to the origins original, we never left, sometimes appear as spirit or invisible. Please remember this. Please remember this. If you're feeling slighted or divided, hardly visible, know to us you matter and your presence indispensable. Our souls are still united, though at times we all feel misery, separate, adversarial, punitive and minimal, calamitous and agitated, out of steam and pitiful. But space and time we share, I dare to say, is mainly liminal, like this too shall pass. Obstacles are stepping stones. Let yourself laugh. Everybody's getting home. My mind is not a refuge. It makes a poor master. You are not your thoughts or the things you think you after. You rooted in before. The concept of an after. I know the truth is here and now. Now tell me what's the matter. If I know one thing, I know this. There's many a slip between the cup and the lip. If I know one thing, I know this. Many a slip between the cup and the lip.
You got me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.